We're excited here to be with Bob Dermer today. And Bob is an actor, a voice actor as well, that has been working in film and television for the better part of 50 years, right?
True enough.
And he played Boot in TVOntario's 1976 hit series Readalong. Many of us will remember that, which was built into the educational curriculum of thousands of schools across Southern Ontario. I remember watching it when I was a kid. And you would later go on to voice Ralph Raccoon in the CBC series The Raccoons, and Nelvana's production of the Care Bears as Grumpy Bear. But you're probably most famously remembered as Samuel T. Crenshaw, or also known as Sam Crenshaw, from the dynamic award-winning series Today's Special. His work on this series has won countless awards. He's been broadcast all throughout North America and has been preserved in the Museum of Broadcasting in the United States. Thank you so much for being willing to be here today, Bob.
Not at all. My pleasure, Travis.
So, first question, who is Bob Dermer? Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up, if you have siblings? Tell us about your family life.
I am a child of the nation's capital. I was born in Ottawa in the mid-40s. Started out leading-edge baby boomer. My public school was a two-block walk. A very lovely life in Midtown Ottawa for a child, great city to grow up in. And at 8, I was taken off to theater school at the Ottawa Little Theatre, which coincidentally is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year in 2012. And I was in theater school there from the ages of 8 to perhaps 13 or so. That was late 50s into the early 60s. In terms of who is Bob Dermer, that's a pretty existential question, so I don't know that I can do that. In terms of early childhood, I had a very nice childhood, product of an older mother. My mom was 46 when she had me. She had her first child at 41. I guess I'm lucky my feet and my face point in the same direction, but it doesn't seem to have done me much harm. It was a happy childhood, in a happy city for the most part, apart from the occasional nuclear alert when we all had to hide against the walls with our heads between our legs. It didn't scare us, really. I don't really know where else to take it in terms of beginning.
Right. Now, what about your training? Did you you completed grade 13? Did you go on and do any?
Well, as I said, my theater training was restricted to those initial 4 or 5 years at the Ottawa Little Theatre. Right. A wonderful, wonderful experience for children under the aegis of a wonderful director. Actually, I should have gotten a picture. Oh, maybe I have it right here. I did bring this to show Travis. This is who is Bob Dermer from his earliest incarnation. This was Bob at age 8, opening up the children's plays. This man here, Bill Glenn, he was the director of the theater school and also of the theater. He went on to become the first director and creator of The Young and the Restless in the United States.
No way. And this is little Bob Dermer, right?
And this is little Bobby Dermer right here at age 8. And we used to
wonderful.
open all the children's productions.
That's wonderful.
And then I went through high school, Lisgar High School, have none of the bad memories that others seem to be cursed with or saddled with. Very pleasant. Did the high school concert every year. And in grade 13, found an opportunity to audition for a television series.
Okay.
Well, I actually intruded into an audition. I was told they were looking for an old Russian man for a TV show at CJOH in Ottawa called Milk and Honey. And I said, I can't do a Russian accent, I will go audition. So I went to audition and they said, you're not playing the old Russian guy, but we do have a part for a 17-year-old kid. And I got that, that was a nice experience. Milk and Honey, the series was called. 200 episodes of a satirical 15-minute show set in a coffee shop just around the corner from the Parliament buildings. Light years ahead of its time.
And that's a little bit about your acting career, but of course, you got into puppeteering. How did that all happen?
Well, beyond that, after graduating, I did that for 1 year. It was great fun and a very rewarding time. Beyond that, I didn't show any great aptitude for academics.
Okay.
I was what you might call the classic C student. And then beyond that, I said I have 10 years acting experience. So I could pretty well see. As a matter of fact, my scrapbook when I was 8 years old, the front page, colored in crayon, says the life of Bobby Dermer. So that's how early on I knew that's where I was headed. And so my mother, God bless her, by the way, she was so much against me being in the theater, I can't begin to tell you. She used to tell me, oh, go be a TV cameraman, go be a jockey, go be a poet, she said to me once. I said, Ma, you really think a poet makes better money than an actor? Be a poet? So I said to her, why don't you want me to be an actor? I mean, if you didn't want me to be an actor, why did you take me to acting school? And this is the honest to goodness truth, Travis. She said, I wanted you to talk nice so you could be a lawyer. Every mother's dream.
Bringing the big bucks, right?
Indeed. So that didn't happen. And she said, well, the very least you have to do is you have to be able to sing, you have to be able to dance, and you have to be able to act. So go and take classes. So I took a dance class. The graduating thing was to be in the chorus line of Annie Get Your Gun at the aforementioned Ottawa Little Theatre. And I was in the back row fake tap dancing like this, because I sure didn't know how to learn how to tap dance in 6 months. And a woman was in the audience called Noreen Young. Milk and Honey had gotten me into the union, and Noreen Young came backstage and saw me, and she said, I'm the entertainment committee for the upcoming union meeting. I see you're in the union now, and I think you're really funny, and would you help me with the union meeting? I'll pay you $25. Operating a puppet. And I said, I've never operated a puppet in my life. She said, don't worry, it's easy. And so I accepted the job, and 3 months later, we did the centennial celebration on Parliament Hill.
Okay.
Pretty well the last live puppet show I ever did.
Wow. So 1967.
67. And Bill Glenn, that tall guy, that was the last thing he directed in Canada before he left for the United States.
Very good.
And a month after that, we had a television series.
How about that?
Called Pencil Box, that ran for 10 years on the CBC.
Incredible. Incredible. Well, let's fast forward and let's talk a little bit about your career at TVOntario, because you spent a lot of time there. Bring us back to when you remember first getting hired at TVO, or back then I think it was called the Ontario Education Communications Authority. It's a bit of a, that's right, a bit of a mouthful. How did that all come about, Bob?
To be honest, I'm hard pressed to know. Oh no, it came about through Noreen Young, who I should say at this point really changed the course of my life, really shaped the rest of my life. My meeting her and my working with her really was the keystone to the rest of my career. Noreen obviously got the job with Readalong in Ottawa, here in Toronto with OECA. And by this time, I was her established second banana.
Okay. Was this the first thing that Noreen did for TVOntario?
I can't say that definitively.
Right.
It was the first that I was aware of. And I'm pretty sure that Readalong was the first thing that I did at OECA.
So it would have been Noreen Young that would have hired you to be a part of this folks going
on? No. All actors work as independent freelancers.
Okay.
She probably said, this is the guy I like to work with, but TVO or OECA are the people I signed the contracts with.
And do you remember who it was that actually hired you from OECA at the time? Would it have been Ruth Vernon?
You know, you asked that earlier, and I can't say for sure that it was Ruth, but it strikes me that I certainly knew her as early as Readalong.
Right.
that she was a major force in the organization and an important part of it.
Now, some have suggested that TV Ontario was a pioneer in leading children's education. How would you describe the atmosphere at TVO during those years and the family of people that you worked with?
Well, first of all, to understand TV Ontario, I'll give you an exemplar. We had some people come up when we were shooting Readalong from the United States. And they came in and they looked at what we were doing and they said, and so this is Canada's version of PBS kind of.
Right, right.
And I said, no, this is a provincial organization. This is not nationally funded. This is strictly a small quasi-state organization. We're not a federal organization. They were most impressed. Your question again was, just so I can keep on.
Yeah, how would you describe that early atmosphere at TVO as you were creating these flagship children's programs that would go on to be remembered by so many people? What was the atmosphere of TVO like and the family of people that you worked with? Because many of you guys worked on the same shows, correct?
We did. It was very collegial. We were, as one might describe, happy campers. We had good jobs. We worked in interesting circumstances. Readalong was filmed in a basement of a building at Yonge and Eglinton Street here, a main intersection in the city of Toronto.
I remember you telling me that the subway would go by.
Indeed.
And it would rattle the whole studio as you guys were.
We heard every subway train that went by, and I don't recall us ever stopping for them. But in addition, I think we knew that we were working on an exceptional program because we had been told how the show was structured.
Sure.
Every shot, when every time a word went up on the screen that the children were going to read, TV or OECA, as in those days, had pre-screened the episode for a class of grade 1, 2, or 3 children.
Gotcha.
And filmed their eye movements. So they could see how they looked at the screen, what they took in first, what was the last thing they looked at. There was that kind of research put into it, which of course made us feel pretty good. I mean, we were pretty proud of what was being done.
Now, while we're talking about Readalong, I think that there's a little gem in here. Yeah, here it is. I think this is the shirt that you were telling me about. Now, this must be from the late 70s, right?
Yes.
There it is. The Readalong T-shirt from TV Ontario with Boot, and you operated Boot, correct?
Yes, I did.
And the voice was done by somebody else.
It was done by a fellow called Jack Duffy, who was actually one of Canada's better-known actors of the day, a wonderful man. I never got to even meet him, though, because that was the only time that I wasn't voicing the puppet I was doing.
Right.
All the puppets in this show are voiced separately, and we operated syncing to the voice track.
And I know you have a real meaningful story of a young man who watched Readalong. Yeah, why don't you share that with us?
It's such a sweet story, actually. And I will try and get it to Travis at a later date. I couldn't get my hands on it just now. It was a letter written to me by a fellow from the States, coincidentally. I guess our show had sold down there as well. And he wrote me to thank me for Readalong and to share with me what kind of an impact Readalong had on his life. And he told me what he loved about Readalong. He was very aware of the fact that there were no commercials.
Right.
I don't know how a child in grade 2, maybe it was only later that he realized that there was no marketing, and that was another thing that was special about TV Ontario. There was no marketing and no commercials.
Right.
This was done for the love of and for children only. Mm-hmm. Nothing to be gained by it other than the satisfaction of doing the right thing.
Right.
And he said, my fiancée, who also remembered the show and loved it so dearly, to the point where we now call each other Boot and Pretty. It's been our nickname. Pretty was a little pink pump that appeared.
I think you keep telling the story, but I'll fish up. Sure. I think we had some of the graphics.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think they're in here.
See if you can find it.
Yeah.
Was a little pink satin pump that was kind of Boots' paramour, his lady friend, and I don't know that they were ever really together. I think she was a little bit aloof, perhaps.
There she is.
I can't perfectly recall. Anyway, he wrote to me to thank me and to tell me, and he wrote to me and said, whatever happened to those people? So I wrote him back, and we had this nice exchange of letters where he said, I wrote him back and said that Purdy had sort of gone astray after the series ended and got tied up with these Cuban heels in their black patent leather slick ways, and had been somewhat hard done by. But that eventually she came back to good old reliable Boot, and
There he is, there's Boot.
and they eventually married and had a lot of little booties, and they're very happy, the both of them now. So it was a nice exchange, and one of those rare moments between talent and the audience.
And you operated a number of these puppets.
I did. I operated House, and I operated the Word Vendor, and Mr. Bones, and Shoe, of course, and things.
That's wonderful.
So it was just basically Noreen and I doing that series together.
Okay.
Now, it was during that time that I met another person, really, who was instrumental in the shaping of my career, and that was Nina Keogh,
That's right.
who I understand you've had an opportunity
Absolutely.
to meet with.
Yeah.
And you're a lucky man for having met her, as far as I'm concerned, because she's a lovely, lovely woman. And somehow she was doing some work. I imagine you know her history, that she's a third-generation puppeteer.
Puppeteer. And actually she was the first ever host on Polka Dot Door in 1971.
She was indeed.
Yeah,
She was
she's
indeed.
been around.
And so I don't know if I met her dad first, John, who was the operator of Howard the Turtle.
That's right.
On another quintessentially Canadian program called Razzle Dazzle.
That's right.
So her father was a puppeteer.
And her mother's name was Linda? Is that-
Linda.
Linda, cute,
Yes,
yeah.
Linda. And John and Linda were a lovely, warm, artistic, outgoing couple that set off for Mexico before anyone was retiring to Mexico, and
Good for them.
yes, indeed, they didn't care for the winters any more than I do, frankly, and so they set off to take up residence in a small town in Mexico. But Nina will tell you about that if she hasn't. So that's how I met Nina,
Right.
and then I sort of became Nina's second banana. And so whenever either of them are working, I was working.
That's wonderful.
That's how I made it
Wow.
work.
You mentioned Noreen Young and Nina Keogh. Who at TVO during your tenure there made the most significant impact on your life? And how did they do that?
I really can't talk about administration, although Ruth was the captain of, I'm trying to figure, Ruth was the admiral of the fleet.
Ruth Vernon.
Ruth
Yeah.
Vernon was the admiral of the fleet.
Very
Let's
good.
put it that way. Clive Vanderberg was the captain of my ship.
Right. Today's special creator.
The creator, the everything, basically. I won't say, there's always been this odd distinction between staff and talent.
Mhm.
And those are the actual names that I saw on doors many years ago, back in CJOH in Ottawa.
Mm.
There was a door on the bathroom that said staff and another one that said talent. And I commented, I said, either the talented people aren't on staff here, or your staff is not talented. I don't understand why you would do this. But in terms of the distinction between staff and talent, Clive was the heart and soul of today's. That's not right. We were sort of the heart and soul. Clive was the immovable force, the real creative genius who did everything. Not only was he the director, he was also the producer, and he was the musical director.
Yeah.
He wore three hats brilliantly, and all of them quite brilliantly. And even when I first came to TVO with this show as a prospect, I was told how how capable he was and how accomplished he was. And he actually I was a bit intimidated
Wow.
by him.
So I think by this time he had done a series called Cucumber and Math Patrol and a couple of others that Clive Endersby had written.
Yeah, he had a rep that preceded him and intimidated me. I can't quite remember how I was hired or the audition process. I'm not even sure there was an audition process.
Well, before we even get there, how long were you at TVO in terms of doing the stuff?
Starting with Readalong, I did that, and then in between I did a show called 2+U.
Okay.
That was a math show. Don't remember too much about that. I think it only ran for a year.
And that was under TVO as well?
That was also under TVO. And then, of course, so if today's, if Readalong ran from, what did you say?
I believe Readalong started in 1975 or 76.
You see, Travis has actually done research, and I rely on what little memory I have left. So I have to go to him to ask questions about my life. And I'm glad he has some answers. In 75 or so. So there really wasn't a break. I went from 3 years of Readalong to 1 year of this 2+U, and by that time in 81, as I have been informed, Today's Special started.
That's right.
So it really was a continuum rather than...
So it was mainly those three shows, Readalong,
Yes.
2+U, and Today's Special.
In latter years I did one there sporadically called Book Mice.
Right, yeah.
But I was
Which Nina was involved in as well.
Yes, she was, but I was there more as a guest artist, kind of.
And would you say that out of those three, Today's Special is probably your favorite?
I would say that without guessing. I think most of us who are connected with that show. Perhaps Jeff, certainly in terms of television, Jeff would certainly say that Today's Special was the best thing and the most wonderful thing he ever did. But Jeff has had a career that's taken him to Broadway.
Yeah, Phantom of the Opera, and so many
Kiss of the
stage shows.
Spider Woman and things. He's had a career that has taken him further afield. Mind you, I'm no slouch myself. I've worked in Hollywood, I worked in Broadway with Henry Winkler, I worked in England, so I've worked around a fair bit. But in terms of an extended period, there's no doubt that Today's Special was an incredible blessing.
What was it like working in Toronto in the 70s and 80s? You know, there's a booming time, the formation of City TV, Second City comedy troupe was kind of at its peak. What do you remember around that time? Was there a buzz? Was there a creative atmosphere that you were a part of?
I think one of the key elements of what was going on is in those years, I guess Canada was a rich country.
Right.
Because we were able, I mean, part of the reason that TVO was able to do what it did is that it had the money to do it.
Sure.
You can only imagine to research all of the materials that were done before you even got to production, what that must have cost. So it took a lot of funding to develop this reputation. It didn't come out of nowhere, not sheer talent. It had to be financed by
the provincial government.
Yes, by the provincial government, and I won't put a political label on it.
Right.
I think it might have been liberal. So that was one element of it. The other element was the Canadian theater scene was also created thanks to money.
Right.
It came out of rioting teenagers in the United States who were rioting over the Vietnam War.
Gotcha.
And the national government of the time didn't want my generation getting up to the same hijinks, so they created something called the Local Incentives Program. These were called the LIP grants. And LIP grants basically gave anybody who provided a reason to hire somebody between 17 and 25, $100 a week to pay them. So Theatre Passe-Muraille, the Factory Theatre, Toronto Free Theatre, which still exists under the Berkeley Street Theatre banner and Center Stage banner, they were all products of that program. And so theatre in the city really started again as a function of having the money to do it.
Wow. You know, many.
So it was a very exciting period. And I was very lucky and once again blessed to be ground floor on a lot of these developments.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Many regard TVO's golden age of children's production as being between 1975, right, when Readalong started, and 1995, roughly. Why do you think the shows produced during those years are so fondly remembered? People all over the world remember, especially in Southern Ontario, remember shows like Polka Dot Door and Readalong and Today's Special, and they all derived from the same network. What was it about it? What contributed to this special kind of creative season? We talked earlier and we said it was like catching lightning in a bottle.
Indeed. I would have to say it has something to do with longevity, with familiarity, because after all, there were other shows from other networks that also have huge followings and memories in people's lives, that touched people's lives. To cite but two, I'm thinking Friendly Giant and Mr. Dress Up.
Absolutely.
That were CBC products. But these were also seminal programs in the lives of a generation of children. Today's Special doesn't surprise me at all that it affected people so strongly. Basically, it was such a good program. Not only was it a show that appealed to basically primary school children and young adolescents, I had so many parents say, we really enjoy watching
it too. I think it was a changing time where before you had children's education that was strictly for educating children, but I think the ground that Clive and you guys broke was that it was now educational, but it was entertaining as well.
We intentionally did, or the show was created with a view to a sitcom for children that will have an educational component.
I remember Clive telling me, he said, we wanted to demonstrate to kids the best of the best talent that could be on the screen, which I think is a wonderful compliment to you.
It is indeed, and he certainly added to that, and although it was only his name that was on screen, I think if you speak to any of the players in that program, you will find a great deal of admiration and respect for him.
Sure. Well, let's shift gears and let's talk a little bit more about Today's Special. I know that you brought a number of things here. I think I'm going to unroll this poster. And as I do, bring us back to the genesis of Today's Special. What year did you first hear about this, and who pitched it to you, and what did they say?
Well, as I said, I don't think I actually auditioned for the show. I think OECA/TVO knew me from
Readalong.
And we also have to keep in mind that this was the poster. I think it was from a rap party. Oh, it was from the live show.
Yeah.
That's
right.
The dates on stage. And does it give the year?
I think off the top of my head, it's probably 85. It doesn't say.
But it doesn't give the year. You know how many programs I've got going way, way back? I have an extensive archives of a lot of theater shows.
Right.
And they never put the year on it. They put the dates, April 27th to March 7th.
Right.
But they never put the year. So decades later, you don't have any real context. So this is signed by all of the, I just noticed this one. This is one of my favorites. This was from our floor director telling me to get married, get out of the business.
Is that Peter Newman?
Settle down. That was Peter Newman.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I loved each other on that show. I take that back. We really, really were so fond of each other on that show. There was very little that divided us even in the earliest days. So anyway, I came to the show almost like...
brought in through Nina?
No. I had been working at TVO without Nina, don't forget.
Okay.
I don't think I did anything. What did I do with Nina? I don't think I did anything.
Maybe nothing by that point.
No, I don't think so. No, Nina came, in fact, I don't know from her. You'll have to ask her how she got. Well, she got there because, as I said, John and or her had worked on Readalong.
Right.
Plus, I might point out, there weren't that many puppeteers in Canada.
Sure. Sure.
That was part of the reason that we had pretty cushy lives. They're just and puppeteering was so new. And this was all because, I mean, Jim Henson had done a couple of spots. There was no Sesame Street.
Right.
Jim Henson had done a couple of spots on the Ed Sullivan Show.
That's right.
And had been favorably received. In the end, he was treated so badly by America that he left and he went to England.
Right.
To do the Muppet Show. He never did do a series in the United States. He felt very hard done by, apparently.
Interesting.
In the United States. So everything was fresh and new. Puppets were new to television. And Noreen was such a consummate artist in the creation of these puppets. There'd never been anything like her. The technique that she developed for building Sam, for example,
it was very unique.
It was very unique.
Yeah.
I think you can see it now in movie science fiction masks and things that they paste on your face.
It's interesting, a lot of things that TVOntario did in the 1970s and 80s, having spoken with Jed Mackay, a script editor, were very innovative for the time. Not just only in the puppets, but in the script and the templates that they would use for shows are now used worldwide and are standards in children's education.
And again, that's the tip of the hat to Ruth Vernon for admiraling that fleet that brought in such wonderful, innovative programs. But Canada was a very vibrant country, you know. I noted yesterday we lost Laurier Lapierre, and who was part of a television series called This Hour Has 7 Days, political comment. And that, again, was something that was groundbreaking. You know, we were a very vibrant country in the 70s and 80s.
So,
still are, I hope.
Bring us back to the genesis. When did you first hear about this, and who was it that specifically hired you to be a part of today's special?
Well, I can't recall who hired me, to be honest. I don't recall the hiring process. I think probably, like so often in my life, I was offered the job.
Right.
For example, in the early days of theater, I don't think I auditioned for anything. I was just offered this and offered that. In the 70s and 80s, I was doing 3 and 4 plays a year in this city. And mostly, they were just offered to me.
And Clive probably was involved on some level.
No, never in theater.
But in hiring you for today's special.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I remember my first meeting with Clive on the set. Me, more trembling mouse than Muffy, I think.
Murphy at the time.
That's right, indeed. I showed Travis an earlier...
well, we actually have the first 2 scripts for today's special.
Wait a second, let me see what's on the back here. Maybe it's somebody's telephone number. And so it is. And Kevin Gillis, in fact, was the creator of Evergreen Raccoons.
Okay,
it was his
very good. But there they are. That's 2 pilots. The thing that fascinated me when I talked to Clive Vanderberg is that
they weren't pilots. I don't believe. Why do you say they were pilots?
That's what Clive.
Oh, he did.
Refer to them. Yeah.
I never knew there was even a pilot process. I would have said, had you asked me, that first year we signed on for, I think it was about 42 episodes.
Sure, doing the 2 series back to back. Yeah. Well, Clive told me that these 2 first episodes were done as pilots, and they used them to test with children to see what the reaction was. And there it is, January 20th, 1981. Today's special, Hats. Episode 1, program number 1, Joanne Carol Hauser, and the superintendent Ruth Vernon, and the project leader Clive Vanderberg. And there it is. And below that is there's the old OECA logo up on the top. And there's the second pilot, Snow, which was written by a new friend of mine, Clive Endersby. He's a wonderful guy. January 19th, 1981, program number 2. It's a little neat piece of history there. Who created the character of Sam Crenshaw, and how much information was given to you, and how much freedom did you have to make him your own?
You know, there's something that usually performers are given when they start on a series. It's called the Bible. I've gotten it on other series. I can't recall if there was a Bible that went along with today's special.
Showed you the guidelines of what the character
It was descriptions of each of the characters. Right. Certainly, Sam evolved, and we'll get into the specifics of how he evolved. But there was an element, and I don't know how he was described. I think possibly they gave me the script. I would imagine they just gave me the script and this is what you say.
Can you say something for us in the voice?
Hello there, flaming flamingos. Good to see you. You like my mustache? People say I'm getting to look more and more like Sam Crenshaw.
I love it.
As I get older. This is from November. I may keep it. The suspenders go with the mustache.
It's wonderful.
But what made Sam distinct to me that either I liked or I helped to create was that I didn't want Sam. I mean, part of the reason. The reason I did Grumpy Bear is they asked me, do you want to be on the Care Bears? And I said, only if I can do Grumpy Bear. I don't want to do little Kissy Bear and Smile Bear. I don't want to do any of those. I don't want to do any of those sucky bears. I don't want to be any of those bears.
You want to be a stick in the mud.
The only bear I want to be, and it really was a reaction to all the sweetness, to the saccharine sweetness that had all around us, you know, from Mr. Rogers to Polka Dot Door. Everybody was very soft and gentle and
soft and cuddly, and they have their sippy cups. There's Grumpy Bear right there. So mentioning him.
Indeed.
Isn't that interesting?
So I didn't want that to be what I brought to the show. So I said, Sam is a grouchy guy. He's got an exterior that can be gruff, because I think children should be exposed to people like this. It doesn't mean they're bad, necessarily. And Sam, as children learned later, they didn't attach to him immediately, believe me.
Right.
They learned later that underneath all of this
Rough
bluster
exterior,
was really such a sweet-hearted guy who sometimes got a bit, you know,
and you can
irascible.
You can see that through the relationship with Sam and Muffy, especially.
Yes, you know. And I said that's more reflective of real life. That everybody isn't just
happy-go-lucky all the time.
Yeah, you know.
What were you trying to accomplish in developing the character of Sam, and what was his role within the show in terms of how he related to the audience? What did you want kids to see in Sam? You mentioned a little bit, but maybe something more. What did you want them to see in who the character Sam Crenshaw was?
It's interesting, you know, Sam had, I haven't really reflected on this, so I'm not sure that I'm going to give much of a complete answer, but Sam certainly represented some elements that were specific to his character.
Sure.
It never occurred to me really, but Sam was the old guy.
Right.
You know, and I don't think we ever did a show called Today's Special is Aging.
Right.
Or being old. And I'm actually kind of surprised that we never did. But he did bring that to the show. Jeff was a boy. Muffy was a little girl. So I guess Noreen and I, Jody and I, were the two adults in the show. Adults in the show.
The contrast. It was interesting when I met with Clive, he was telling me just how much research-based the whole show was. And you had black with white and old with young, and it was brilliant.
You think they ever told us any of that? But I'd be really interested to watch the interview with Clive, only to hear, because I'm sure he would cast, you know, tremendous light on so much background that even I'm not aware of or we weren't aware of.
Any memories of recording the first two pilots?
Yes, I think I was uncomfortable with Sam right from the get-go because you could see his deficiencies as a puppet pretty early on.
Right. We talked about how he was a lot thinner in that first season.
Well, his whole body was rebuilt.
He gained some weight between season 1 and 2.
He gained a whole new body. He basically had a head transplant. I'm sure anyone who's watched the series will see Sam with his little arm out there, and I think he only had one arm at that time, and we had to go through a screen door, and so.
And is that your arm?
That's my hand.
That's your hand.
So the puppet works like this. Don't know if that hand is in. Is that in the shot? No.
It is now.
The puppet works like this. So there's Sam's head.
Sure.
Up here. He would be here, but he had a little injury, and he's at the doctor's. Nothing serious, nothing serious. He banged his nose. He was embarrassed to come. Anyway, so Sam's here, and there was a sleeve. There was subsequent to those first couple of episodes, there was a new body built with a much more substantial body, big enough, in fact, that it could go this far, from there to there, right down to there, so I could still see out from under him, yet cover the top of my head. And there was a sleeve with a tube in it, and this arm went in like this,
Gotcha.
almost to there.
Looking a little bit more natural.
Well, and then you had a goodly length of arm, jacket arm, and a consistently normal-looking hand that ended in an appropriate sized hand.
So this just came about as a natural evolution of the puppet. To what
Yeah,
was
really.
work.
It was a refinement.
He went to the gym in between season 1 and 2. Pumped some iron.
And so you say it was at the end of season 1 that you noticed this
Yeah,
body
I think
change?
that there's a body change that happens between the first series of episodes and the second series.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember there being a break between doing the first couple of episodes and or did you go full blow and do all of 42 episodes for the first 2 series?
I don't honestly remember. I don't really even remember how we shot the show. Up until fairly recently, I had binders. God, I don't know what I've... a little sideline. Well, I've recently had to go through all of my archival materials and get rid of so much stuff I
Right.
can't begin to tell you. So, and I know I had binders with scripts in them, and they had scenes. I guess they were divided into episodes. We might have done 5 episodes during the week. I think we did. Clive probably will remember that.
It was a night job too, right? Because you were in the Simpsons. You worked nights.
No, that Simpsons shoot happened. We were only in Simpsons ever twice. Only ever twice. Don't forget, when they have that opening in a show, they don't go there every time.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
So they just showed that. We only shot that once.
Sure, but what
Once-
about the scenes that were in the store?
They were all in studio.
Really?
Yeah.
So they recreated the Simpsons store in a studio.
It was only a small little section of the store, after all.
Sure.
Yeah, no, there's TXL, it was all studio. There was a little set over there that was the Sam's. I think there were only 2 sets in the show. The Sam's computer room downstairs. I don't suppose it was called the computer room. Maybe it was.
Muffy's house, and then
And there was a little Muffy's
the
house
children's department store.
and the children's department.
Now,
That's about all there was.
you mentioned you've thrown away some stuff, but you have kept some really interesting stuff. Tell us what these are.
This is a cell, an animation cell from the opening montage. So if you watch it, you'll see these come up. I think each of the performers and Clive and as many as there were distributed
Got a
amongst.
copy. And there's Sam Crenshaw, and then Jeff, played by Jeff Hislop, and
Yeah.
Muffy, originally named Murphy, played by Nina Keogh, and of course Jody, played by Noreen Virgin.
Indeed. So when we looked through that script, did you notice it being Murphy all the way through the script?
It's Murphy all through the first episode of Hats. Yeah.
But Jeff says that he's watched the first episode of Hats, and she is in fact called Muffy right from the
Yeah,
beginning.
you can
So-
want to call me Jeff, and I'm fine.
Oh,
with that.
that's right.
But my
I
name
did
is
it again.
Travis.
I know that. I know
It's
that.
all good.
I don't know why I'm saying that.
I'll be
So,
Jeff. It's probably because you're looking.
Yeah,
at Jeff.
actually, lucky you.
Now I haven't.
Yeah, so that's a nice bit of.
I haven't looked at the second pilot, Snow,
Just
to see if it's
if it
Murphy
said
then.
Murphy.
I don't know if it changed by then. I can
See,
take a
by
quick
this time
look.
I was already underlining my lines. Puppeteers are blessed.
Still Murphy for the 2 pilots.
Uh-huh.
So
Interesting.
there you go, Murphy the Mouse. Before
Well,
Murphy.
they were pre-written well in advance of us started. We would have had 5 scripts in our hands before we walked into the studio, if not 20 being written.
Right.
Probably all of
And
them.
you would do 2 series at a time, right? You'd go in and take a whole year.
No. In the later years, certainly we only did. I think the second time we went into the studio, I didn't realize that we shot 2 years in one. I didn't remember
Right.
that we shot the first and second years. So they would have been, and you said you think there were 42 in that first go-round.
I believe so. The one piece of information that I can give you that I have discovered is that the first season, although the copyright on the show, and although it was filmed in 1981, the first series of 20 some odd episodes did not broadcast on TV Ontario until September 1982.
That's interesting.
So, and we know that from TV Guide listings.
Really?
Was
I
there,
have brought you a TV guide in there also.
yes, I saw that. Was there any sense that you guys were breaking new ground during the taping of that first season? Was there any sense of, man, we're doing something new? And if there was, what were the indications of such?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't think we appreciated how long it would run or how good it was going to be. I think right from, as they say, the get-go, we all kind of understood that we had a pretty talented cast pulled together.
Do you feel like a
to do
unique
this.
family?
Not in the beginning necessarily, you know, like any family that's brought together. I mean, even the Brady Bunch didn't love each other right away.
Sure. But you grew to love each other, right?
Oh, certainly, and it didn't take long. I think we were pretty pleased right from the beginning with the format, with the execution, which really changed. So I did say that the puppets operated up here, and then a hand goes through a sleeve, and there was Sam. But what was nice about Sam is that he was almost life-size.
Sure.
So there were people that I met in later years who thought that it was a real character.
No way.
And I said, you didn't notice that it was a puppet? And they said, not as a kid.
Now, the voice seemed to develop over the years as well. Having been a voice actor, is that just something that naturally happens as you settle into the role?
I would suggest you go and watch the first season of The Simpsons.
Right. I've noticed that.
And that's the answer to your question. Voices definitely evolve to what you can manage, what you can sustain. It was a little awkward with Sam because it's very hard to sing like that.
Sure.
So I didn't get a lot of singing. Not that I'm much of a singer anyway. I'm an actor who sings, as they call it. But certainly, I won't say changed. Everything just gets refined.
How did you develop the voice? What kind of things did you want it to be?
Oh, it's kind of, you know, quintessential old. You know, it's just an old voice.
Now,
What can you say?
Now you must be able to do some level of singing because there was today's special.
They didn't let me sing a lot.
LP.
Look, the others of them were really very good singers.
And just for people that are that don't know what this is before compact discs and before cassettes.
Oh, yeah.
This is vinyl.
It is indeed.
You need a record player to play. You can hold that up. It's got some dust on it. Probably needs to be cleaned off.
Well, and record players, it's people don't even hardly, you know, certainly younger people are a bit baffled by record players. I bought one for a friend of mine's daughter, and she said, how do you change tracks? And I had to teach her.
Look for the space. In
Yeah, I had
between
to
the vinyl.
teach her how you look like this, and you find a little space in the vinyl, and you put the needle down in the little space. And she said, is there music on the other side? I said, yes, there's music. But, you know, and I don't take for granted when young people don't know this stuff. This is all antique stuff.
Do you remember any of these songs? Because I think you sang and there's something about a hat. And let's see here, Yo Hee Ho, of course.
Oh, well, Yo Hee Ho was Sam's signature tune. So he sang that at the drop of a hat.
And can we get a verse of that?
Singing yo hee ho, sail across the ocean blue. Singing yo hee ho, I'm a coming home to you. Our ship it sails the seven seas because the captain's lost. Our ship it sails the seven seas. Oh, I got that wrong. No, I can't. Apparently, if I would have thought a bit longer, I would have.
Well, you know what? Let me help you out here.
Our ship it sails. Our ship it sails the seven seas as back and forth we're
tossed.
Something because the captain's lost. Never do the punchline.
The sails they flutter in the breeze while back and forth
we're tossed. Our ship it sails the seven seas
because the captain's
lost.
That's good. And Clive Vanderberg and Clive Endersby wrote that.
I think Clive wrote a lot of. So Clive Endersby would have written the lyric.
And you know what? It's copyrighted 1980, so I wonder that probably was very early because you guys weren't recording until 1981, so it was probably developing the songs even before all the scripts were ready, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, can you tell us a little bit about how the series was taped and over what months of the year? Like, what was the ebb and flow of your work during those times? Is it like you go in for 4 months and you knock it out and you have the rest of the year
I
off?
wanted to go back to why we were happy there, just for a moment.
Absolutely.
And Clive Vanderberg. I think I've told you how intimidated I was by the notion of working with this very accomplished man who I expected to actually get to work on time and actually work really hard. And I'm a very, I don't know that lazy is the right word, but I'm rather a casual sort of fellow.
Sure.
And so I was really quite worried about the prospect of working with this, a man I was afraid was going to be a slave driver. Clive walked into that studio the first time with his tie on his head, like this, tied this way, hanging down like that.
And you knew from that moment.
And I said, that is a great man. That a man who is as accomplished and capable, but and brilliant enough
Willing to have
be
fun.
able to break the ice like that.
Sure.
I said, this is going to work out because he's okay. And it was true. I mean, he was
That's wonderful.
a remarkable fellow. The shooting schedule, as I said, never ran more than 3 or 4 months
Per year.
Per year. Our renewals in the early years were, I think, 26 episodes. Uh-oh, you got a call.
I think we're good.
Yep. We're 26 episodes. I think thereafter, I think the most episodes we ever did in a single year might have been something like 46.
Right.
And they played it basically every week, every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30
Yeah.
on TVOntario. Well, where did you do the tapings? Where were they done? Do you remember the studio? And was I think you answered this already, but not everything was done in the evenings, obviously. You would tape during the day.
I don't think anything was done in the evening.
Interesting.
It wasn't done in the evenings. We worked a day schedule.
Okay.
I was lucky. They were shot at a studio for the most part called Sherman Laws, which was here in Toronto at the Lake Shore out near Islington.
Right.
Queensway in Islington.
Yeah.
Out there was a studio.
So the same place Polka Dot Door was done as well?
No, Polka Dot Door, I don't know where the later Polka Dot Doors
Right.
were done, but the early Polka Dot Doors were done probably in the basement of OECA,
Wow.
of that building. The other thing I might point out that you asked about what was it like shooting at that building. Television studios usually have 30-foot ceilings
Right.
nowadays.
Right.
That had a ceiling that was like a 12-foot ceiling.
Wow.
So there was
Limitations.
yes, considerable limitations. The sets went up to the ceiling practically. So the lighting, as I recall, must have been particularly peculiar in that way. So we shot most of it at Sherman Laws. I was lucky because I was coming from the east, heading west, and most of the traffic on the Gardner was coming into the city.
Gotcha.
So we were always able to go, I think all of us, against the flow of traffic, and when they were all going home, we were coming back into the center of the city.
Now, Bob, one of the things that so many people remember about Sam Crenshaw, especially as a character, is the amount of physical comedy that you brought to the show. In fact, I remember an episode called Ice Cream, and I think we were talking about this earlier, where Sam is saying to everyone, hey, I'm going to keep my ears attuned to the wall. And he packs himself into the corner of a room and literally puts both of his ears. That kind of physical comedy, though, ran throughout the whole series. Is that something that was written into a lot of the scripts, or is that something that you brought into the show?
I really have to talk about my relationship at this point with the writers.
Please do.
The writers, God bless them. You know how many
there were a lot. There was Joanne Hauser, Clive Endersby. Did Clive Vanderberg write any scripts?
I don't recall. I don't think so. And no, I wish I could go through the writers' names.
Sure.
But I'd have to research that myself, and I know you'll do that better than I can. How many writers does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know about how many.
You're not changing anything. That is a writer's joke, because writers don't like to mess with what they've written.
Right.
They slave over every word.
Composers are similar too.
They want you to say, well, I wasn't the best at doing that. I must admit, I was not very good about doing that.
You take some allowances.
I was gracious. I called it making it my own.
Sure.
You know, saying it the way I
I
want
think
to
that's
say
a
it.
familiar term amongst many actors.
Yes,
Owning
against
it.
screwing up writers' lines. And it's not necessarily a good philosophy, but I would say, and I ask once again the writers to forgive me if I left out something of your favorite, because they weren't even there to defend themselves.
Sure.
No, that's not true.
Jed
For
McKay?
every episode, we would have a read-through
Okay.
at the start of the day.
And I know Jed McKay, I was talking with him, and he mentioned that he attended some readings. And actually, Jed wrote what he calls a series of the doom and gloom episodes. Jed was responsible for Butterflies, which was about death.
Yes.
He was responsible for Phil's Visit, which was about alcoholism.
Oh, yes.
And he was also the writer of Storms, which caused you to get quite wet, from what I understand.
Ah, that one, yes, that odd story. So there was a writers' meeting, and I'm sure some of these things I ran by them before I did them, and other things I might have just ad-libbed, I
Sure.
guess you might call it. But and then in the latter years, I would say things like to myself that I know this character better than they do, which is, you know, not really fair to them.
Sure, but you had made it your own, and you knew that maybe Sam wouldn't react a specific way, especially.
And it never really was very much. You can't. I don't know. I think shtick was probably my thing from childhood.
Sure.
You know, and
the whole slapstick, physical.
yeah,
comedy.
you know. Well, and
There's a lot of Kramer in Sam Crenshaw.
Well, as much as I could do, it's fun. Anything for a laugh. They never had it, but maybe in my case, today's special was ham. That's an old expression to do with overacting and acting out and things like that.
And they have, I think the thing that made it too is just the outrageous sound effects, car horns and whatnot when something would hit you. Like they really did well to serve your physical comedy.
Well, indeed, and you know, you cannot slight and should really laud everyone who was connected with this series. There wasn't. I think that's part of what was so remarkable is that there wasn't really a weak link anywhere.
Right.
There was no weakest link. We were a solid group of professionals, privileged to work on a brilliantly conceived construct, and given every opportunity to create the best of educational programming and entertainment programming, and we were blessed to have 6 years doing that.
Did you have a favorite writer?
No, I imagine there are others in the series who would have said, "Oh, so and so was my favorite writer," but I don't think I ever really did that. Once the words were in my hands, they were mine.
Jed McKay tells a story about how he and Clive Endersby would try to upstage each other in terms of, because they're both very good script writers when it comes to rhyme.
Indeed.
And so when they would write for Muffy or a scene with Muffy and Mort, they would try to outdo each other. And Jed actually confided in me during our interview yesterday, which will be up on YouTube in the weeks to come, that he would actually go into TVOntario and study Clive Endersby's work to get ideas from him, just because he respected him so much.
Now that you mention it, certainly Jed was one of the people I remember.
Sure.
From those years.
It's a delightful.
And Clive as well, but I remember Jed particularly. I think he showed up at a couple of our closing parties and things, so he was maybe a bit more present than some of the others were.
Now, your favorite song has to be Yo He Ho, right? Sam's signature song, or would there be another one?
I don't know. I have to go back to the today's special site on YouTube. And
listen through some of them.
Well, today,
or get a record player and listen to the vinyl again.
Well, as I said, I don't sing much on this, to be honest. I think they only let me sing one song. I think Yo He Ho.
Well, I think you got a couple of verses. There's something about a hat, and there's a couple other spots here. Let me think here. When I Was Young, that was with you and Jody.
Now there was a song.
Yeah.
If you say, do you have a song that, and I could possibly do
When
all.
I was young, da 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 da.
Dollies didn't cry
There you go.
when I was young. Airplanes didn't fly. Computer games, they were not invented then.
He's got it. I remember the first television.
Television.
There you go.
That was actually probably one of my favorite songs.
Probably because it's one of the few you got to sing, right?
That's right.
Good stuff.
Yo-yo and that was, and it was also, I certainly wasn't old enough in those years to be nostalgic, but it really was about Sam.
Yeah.
And you know, we say that it was, you can take that out. Oh, that was, these are some of the limited edition things.
Paraphernalia. This is still wrapped today's special mug.
Yeah, that's in plastic, and we had it in ceramic also. This is again something that was made up for us.
Never opened.
That never got to, these were the things that weren't marketed. That's a little today's special watch.
They were just in-house for the actors. And
Yeah. And that mug was done, you know, they were done at wrap parties, for wrap parties and things like that. Gifts from
Right.
TVO, thank you TVO, you were good to us. You were always, I mean, the network was
Sure.
always good to us, you know.
Now there was this stuff that was done. We talked a little bit about the creation of Murray Young creating Sam the puppet. How many Sams were
And
there?
Muffy.
And Muffy. How
And
many
Muffy.
Sam puppets were there?
I understand that there were in total 4.
4 that you used during the whole duration of the show.
No, I think there was only ever 1 during the whole
Really?
duration of the show.
And where are they?
And by puppets, I'm not sure that they were all a body. I think there may have been 4 heads. I believe there is one Sam puppet in the Museum of Civilization, as it were, back in Ottawa,
Mm-hmm.
Ottawa/Hull. Actually, I think it might be over the river somewhere. So I think there's a Sam and a Muffy there. I was very disappointed that I couldn't get the Bata Shoe Museum to take. I had access to Boot and Pretty
Oh,
from
really?
Maureen Young, and I called them and I said, these characters should be in your museum.
Sure.
You know, how often do puppets ever get to be stars of television?
Absolutely.
And they didn't do it.
Mm.
And I think it's a real shame. I think it was missed opportunity, Bata Shoe Museum.
You know, one of the questions from
So there, I've had Sam all these years, and that was one incarnation. I didn't bring old pictures. There's too many weird pictures of me over the years.
Now, one of the questions from a lot of fans that they have is, you know, in 1984 there was a drastic change in the set in the children's department, and of course your computer office got totally redone, you know, with that orange kind of interior. Do you remember if there was a reason for that? I remember the episode was called Changes.
I don't remember it happened.
Let alone why.
There was a reason that it happened.
Right. Well, before, let's see if I jogged your memory. You had a room, and you'd have bottled ships, and you know the computer was like an old Apple II computer.
Yeah.
And then after the renovations, it had that portrait of you hanging on the wall with the orange,
Which I still have.
and the gray interior. You mentioned that in your man cave back home.
No, I can't remember unless it was. Well, they were looking for changes. Today's special is changes.
So let's change some things.
And I don't think the set evolved very much over the years. Nina and I, the puppeteers, worked on these boxes, which were perhaps 2 feet high and had casters on the bottom
Sure.
that we could roll around on and fake walk along. And we worked often behind counters. There were some front pieces, counters that we could come out in front of the set, kind of. But why the change? I don't know. Maybe it was after 4 years of shooting, they figured they could do something a little bit different.
Freshen things up.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever request any changes that you wanted done to the set to accommodate you guys better?
No, it was sort of an interesting thing because we were trying to get puppets and human beings to be of similar height. So And so the behind the counters portion were built up on risers,
Mm-hmm.
so we stood at that height. And then there were a couple of steps down, so I guess we never, and Nina and I had monitors at either side of it.
And you had your scripts with you, which is
And we had our
bonus
scripts
of being a puppeteer.
pasted up on the back of the counters, so we didn't have to memorize lines. Talk about a blessing. So my heart used to go out to Jeff and Noreen sometimes over
Having to memorize, and not only, like, the thing too is Noreen tap dancing and memorizing all these songs, sometimes 3-4 songs an episode. And just, Clive was telling me that you guys would often learn them on the spot. You'd have some things ahead of time, but other times
we were given audio tracks,
right,
with piano tracks to them,
sure,
and sheet music.
right.
So somewhere in my collection, I have a bunch of sheet music from the series.
And do you read music, or did you learn to read music?
No, I did play a saxophone in high school from grade 9 to about grade 12. I regret giving that away, I can tell you. But, so I won't say I read music, but if you follow along, you can see the notes going up, you can see them going down.
There you go.
So it was enough of a cue to help with singing the songs.
Now, at what point did the light go on and you realized that this show had become a runaway success? Because it really had, and it's etched in the memories of so many people. At what point did the light go on and you thought, oh my goodness, we are really making quite an impact here? Was it from some of the shows, the live shows, or the appearances in the department store?
No, even up to and including the live shows, although we sold out Roy Thompson Hall,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, and we sold out the Cops Coliseum or Hamilton Place, whatever it was, and the National Arts Centre in Ottawa. We were in a smaller studio theatre, I think. Even that didn't have any kind of effect. I think where I first realized just how big it was for a tribute to Clive Vanderberg.
Really?
That was at Ryerson University. Clive taught there for several years. And when he retired, they had this function for him to honor him. And Nina and I were both at the time living in the city. Jeff was in Vancouver. Noreen, for some reason, was not available. And so Nina and I were invited along to come and, say something nice about Clive. But when we came out on stage and we were introduced as the puppeteers who did Sam and Muffy, that audience gave us a standing ovation.
How about that?
That's when I said, I can't believe it. I didn't realize
the impact had been so large.
The impact that we'd had on a crowd, and it would just happened to be all 31-year-olds, kind of,
sure,
or whatever it was in that year. Maybe they were 28-year-olds or something.
And during your time, you guys covered some pretty racy topics for preschool children, including like I mentioned before, one on death, one on alcoholism. Were those challenging to do? And what were some of the challenges? What were some challenging episodes and scripts for you as Sam?
I can't recall anything that was particularly challenging. What I do know is that when we did those episodes, we knew they were important episodes.
Right.
That we knew. We knew that they were groundbreaking and that we were touching on topics that other people weren't. And we knew that we were the people to do it.
Trust had been built.
We really felt like, and we were very proud. I mean, we were proud of the series fairly early on.
Sure.
I think we knew we were doing something very worthwhile.
And it's often the sense of pride that propels things to keep going at a level of excellence.
Really,
Do you have any favorite episodes?
Funny the ones we remember. And music so often is a touchstone for things you remember. I remember Jeff on the roof singing about the night sky.
Right. In the twinkle of the night sky.
Which was such a beautiful song and such a beautiful set. I really liked that one.
We were talking about some of your favorite episodes. Do you have a favorite episode?
I can't really say that I had a favorite episode, at least not one that I can bring to mind immediately. It was, I speak of my childhood in this way. I said it was, my childhood was sort of this sweet continuum that had no horrific low points until my father died when I was 13. And a few moments that I remember, a kid bringing a BB gun and shooting a hole in the Merry Christmas for Santa's pack. We were asked to bring in toys to put in Santa's bag.
Sure.
I was playing Santa Claus in grade 5. And
but you didn't have the white hair then, of course.
No, nor the mustache. And I say I don't really remember things because it was all just a pleasant river full of good times. I don't remember any lows or any extreme highs.
There were a lot of good times, and
There were indeed.
there's a picture. And what do you make of it when you look at these folks and these smiling faces? What kind of thoughts come to mind?
This was a family of, I think everybody is smiling, and it's a genuinely happy gang. We were the happy gang, and we were on a project that we all loved, in a place we all loved. We were blessed amongst entertainers.
This is Peter Newman, the floor director?
Yep.
And did you say Ian Lozon?
No, his name was Roger Lozon.
Roger
Lozon. And Ian, this was...
Ian Wan?
Ian Wan is here.
Right there?
Yes. Has he not been here?
Clive
Vandenberg himself.
Jeff Hislop and Nina Keogh, Noreen.
And myself.
Yourself, pardon me.
Jane Downey, who was a major player. She was sort of our on-site production coordinator, as I recall.
And she was Ruth Vernon's right hand.
I believe so. That's as I recall. This was Marnie.
Marty Malabar.
Marty Malabar. Malabar.
Malabar.
And you'll have to forgive that I'm not coming up with all of the names, but there were Diane in makeup and Alf in lighting, and I'm sure that the person who did that graphic that we spoke of
Is that Joyce?
Joyce, that's exactly
That's
who
right.
it was,
Okay.
and she's probably in here somewhere. Props is here, our set people are here, our cameramen are here. This was Dave, he was a camera guy that I recall well. I remember him doing...
That'd be Dave Moore? No.
No.
I think Dave Moore was the director for Polka Dot Dora.
Which I'm glad, because I don't...
Oh,
So you don't get reflections.
There you go.
See, that was something
Tricks
I
of the
learned
trade.
in the business. So we were a very happy family, and when the store closing episodes came along, there were many tears shed that day. We were really leaving something that I think we were maybe ready to do. That, you know, we didn't want to jump the shark, and but it was with heavy hearts that we left.
If Clive had stuck around and wanted to do more episodes, do you think that the cast would have continued on?
No, I know Nina and I were keen to. I can only speak, and I think I can speak for her with some confidence, that we would have continued. I think Jeff might have wanted to move on.
Sure.
You know, the career he went on to. And I think Noreen might have been willing to let it go also, but I think I could have stayed with them longer. I know I could have stayed with it longer.
I'll ask you this question, and as I do, I'm going to hold up some articles that just demonstrate how wildly popular today's special was. Really throughout Ontario and Canada and even the United States as well.
Now that's something that your audience should know.
Mm-hmm.
Today's special never got a national distribution.
Right.
Again, rather a tragic circumstance, since I think our glory could have been even wider spread.
Sure. But I do know it aired on PBS and Nickelodeon in the States.
It did. It was the top-rated show. We only showed it for 2 years on Nickelodeon, and it was their number one show both years. It ran down there.
And having lived in America, it's funny to go down there and you talk to people my age and they know what today's special is.
We have a fan base down there. I know there was what is it when you senior weekend, a petition put together by and signed by thousands of American people asking for the show to come back or be rerun.
Right, sure. Hasn't happened yet.
And so it played in Ontario, it played in Alberta. It was sold around the world. I think the proudest sale we ever made was that today's special was sold to South Africa at the height of apartheid. And we were thrilled to pieces with that because we had a black and a white star working cooperatively. And we were very proud of the fact and felt that it meant something that show was seen in that country at that time.
Bob, why do you think the show has captivated such a large demographic and been sealed into the memories of so many children worldwide? What is it that appeals to children? And as you answer, I'm just going to hold up some of these articles that demonstrate its wide effect.
I think all of the characters, pardon me, all of the characters on that show were easy to love, really.
Mm-hmm.
They were people you'd want to have as friends. And of course they were there during children's formative years, and we were like friends from their childhood, you know. And you know what they say about old friends are gold and things like that. And we were privileged to make friends with that audience. And somebody once, we worked for children. We knew who our audience was, and I think we felt as warmly towards them as they did towards us. As I said earlier, I never thought that it would resonate to the extent that it did over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm particularly proud to have done something in my life that has meant, I guess, so much to so many. I'm sorry that more people couldn't have seen it, and I'm not sure if this is true, but I wonder if the show went back on the air, what it was rerun, if it wouldn't be successful today. I know it's an innocent kind of show. We don't have any of the games, but I know how much it was loved. I was told in later years that children were threatened with withholding today's special if children didn't finish their suppers. So it had some impact.
And there's a program from some of the live shows that you did. That one's actually from Hamilton Place. You know, you mentioned something that works well into one of our rapid questions. And as you are aware, TVOntario, due to actor copyrights and due to copyright clearing, is very, very limited with what they can release. Not only from today's special, but really from a large part of their archive. How does it make you feel that some of your material, in a sense, is locked away, not to be enjoyed by other people, other students, other historians, other archivists, other young people?
You know, Travis, I'm not even sure how much exists, if not for people like you and me, who basically copied it right off the television.
Right.
I've brought you a half dozen cassettes.
Got these old tapes from the early 80s, and from what I understand, these are taped. You can feel from the weight of them. They're from 1981, 82, 83, and they're taped when the shows originally aired, which is remarkable.
Off the air.
Wow.
I had the foresight to do that. But there are two elements to that question that I bring forward. One is my background from early childhood is the theater.
Right.
And the theater is the most ephemeral thing in the world. I mean, when the play is over, the product is gone, never to be seen again. That's why I'm so excited what's happening now with the movie industry or the theater industry, bringing theatrical productions and operas to the movie audiences, not only distributing them on a far wider scale than would otherwise be, but that it exists, it still
Sure.
exists.
Sure.
So I'm used to things being ephemeral from my theater background, and also I mentioned that series I had done as a 17-year-old,
Right.
Milk and Honey. We did 200 episodes of that.
Now, do any of those episodes exist?
No, not a one. They were done on tape, on
2-inch tape, probably.
yeah, and
Which is very difficult to even find machines that can
would
transfer.
play it, yeah. But at the time, they didn't have any way to keep it, so all of those episodes are gone.
Isn't that something?
I have
It's
a
such
few,
a shame.
I have a few stills from that period, but nothing more than that. I think, actually, there was one episode that I think I saw many years ago. I walk in and I walk into the door of the Olive Grove Cafe, the coffee shop, and I say, anyone seen my dad? And they go, no, and I leave. That's all I appear.
It's the extent.
That was a remarkable series, truly remarkable series. It was done what's called live to tape. In other words,
Yeah.
it was videotaped, but
No messing up.
no stopping, no stopping. We even had one character forget her lines for 2 minutes. Do you think they stopped rolling the tape? No.
Not at all.
And I said, you can't put that on the air. How are you going to do that?
Right.
And when it came to air, they ran the tape as it was, and when this person forgot their lines, they put in a slide that said, trouble is temporary. And after 2 minutes, when she'd remembered the line, or somebody fed her the line, they pulled the slide and continued rolling the tape.
It's just another world. Well, Bob, this has been just incredibly helpful. I know that there's tons of people watching back home that have just been so thrilled to not only meet the man behind Sam Crenshaw, but to hear his voice as well.
My pleasure.
Bob, one last question as we wrap up. When it comes to your career, what are you most proud of?
Well, I think I can easily say, certainly in television, there was never anything I had done to be as wonderful an experience, as rewarding an experience as today's special.
Mm.
I did one stage play about cerebral palsy that will stay with me also. That was certainly the most memorable theatrical thing I ever took part in. I've led a blessed life. I've been truly blessed and had lots of wonderful moments. This included. It's been a real pleasure meeting you, Travis.
We've been blessed to hear from you as well. And I know I can't let us go without you telling the story behind this little pin that is very important to you. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that?
And this is fun because I'll take the pin out. Maybe you can even get a close-up of it. Because it involves Barrie, where we happen to be to this day. This is a little clapperboard that would start every scene, and so they could sync up the audio and video portion of it. And it was made for me by my dearest friend Nina Keogh. And it says, today's special, scene 12, take 82, which never happened. We never got around to take 82. And it says TVO, and the name here is R. Delmar. And the story is where Mr. Delmar came from. I was doing a stage play here in Barrie, obviously in, I think 82 might actually have been the year.
How about that?
That this gift came to me from,
Okay.
from Nina. And I was doing a play up here called Mayonnaise at the Griffin Theatre here. Mm-hmm. And I was checked into a small hotel that fronts the lake. It's not there anymore, it's condos. And when I checked into the hotel, the young woman at the desk was so just bowled over by the fact that I was an actor that she really was thrilled to meet me like I was a Hollywood movie legend, which I thought was charming and quaint and cute and things. That first evening I was sitting in the dining room eating supper by myself, and a call came for me for whatever reason, And this young woman came in from the desk going, "Oh, Mr. Delmar, there's a phone call for you." So that's where the nickname Mr. Delmar came
She
from.
never forgot that. Wow.
And stayed with me for years afterwards. I was known as Mr. Delmar.
How about
On
that?
today's special.
And this final thing too is one of a kind. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this? I know you were wearing it earlier, but we took it off to
Well,
show.
as that fellow who admired Readalong so much because there was never any advertising in it or marketing, the same was true of today's special. There's no today's special lunch boxes. There's no Sam bobblehead dolls or.
But there are some jigsaw puzzles from what you tell me.
There is, and in fact I have one. But I think that was. You know, I cannot think of another commercial product that
Maybe
was
just
ever
that
licensed.
Maybe that in the record.
And the record.
Right.
Those were probably the only two commercial products that ever came out.
And this is one of a kind, as is the mug and the
Yeah,
watch.
these were all things that were made specifically for cast and crew of the show.
And Nina tells me that there is also a jacket that resembles this as
There
well.
is.
Did
I
you keep
have
your
it
jacket?
also. I did. Has sort of faded to this odd purpley shade. I think I didn't like water so much. But again, that's something I knew enough that I want to keep and cherish always.
Well, Bob, I think one of the interesting things about the work that you have done, in comparison to what I've done as an educator, in the classroom I may influence hundreds, maybe thousands of people in my career, but through the work that you've done, because it's been so widespread, because it's been so wide seen by so many kids, you've had the ability to influence millions of young people. And I think that is a wonderful testament to your life, and I think that's a wonderful testimony to the countless kids that have been impacted by the character of Boot and the character of Sam Crenshaw and many of the other characters that you have played. You have educated the masses, and I think that is worthy of honor. So thank you so much, Bob, for being here today.
Thank you, Travis. And thank all of you who've enjoyed this series and made us what we are today. And couldn't have done it without you, as they said. Thank you all so much.